First of all, can you iron this out for us? What is the Joint Expeditionary Force and why is this meeting so significant?
It's a 10-nation group. They are, for the most part, within NATO. They don't work against NATO, they work with NATO, but it's part of the old Northern group. It includes the Netherlands and the UK, then a string of countries who are becoming increasingly significant and absolutely vital in the Ukraine crisis, from the three Baltic countries, and they're meeting in one of them, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, and Norway. And I'm sure I've left one out. But this was largely by initiative with Britain. And this is no fringe token event. They're terribly important
Mm.
in the security of Ukraine to the north. And it is a real test for Rishi Sunak because Britain is the convener, the senior partner, and it has been called by the government of Latvia and Lithuania, the two together. They're meeting in Riga, and they are really worried about the next phase of the battle for Ukraine, the war in Ukraine. And I must say that around the houses, both at home and abroad, there are concerns about Rishi Sunak's leadership about this, because he has given some unfortunate signs that he's peddling back on Britain's role and commitment to Ukraine, and peddling back on, certainly on his predecessor's commitments to increasing the defense budget. There's no chance of that. There's even a sign that he may want to cut back.
In that case, then, what do you think will be the main aim of the Prime Minister this week? What will be his main message to get through?
He's got to show he's a real leader. He's got to show that that he isn't just the king of the spreadsheet and a first-class accountant and banker, because a lot of what's in prospect from Russia over the next 5-6 months cannot be done on a spreadsheet. It's absolutely clear now that Putin is planning for a major offensive, very possibly the major offensive, roughly between mid-January and I would say going to early April. There are signs already, even more vivid ones today, that he's trying to reconstitute a new army of 300,000 to attack from the north, to attack into Ukraine from the east, and also to do something from the Black Sea. Now, this is the time when the West have got to come up with more ammunition supplies because they're running out, and probably more weaponry and slightly better weaponry than a lot of them have been providing, including some of the poorer weaponry provided by Britain and Italy, for example.
Robert, I just want to move away from Ukraine, if I may, just for a moment. We know that the government is enlisting the armed forces to cover striking ambulance drivers and border force officials over the Christmas period. What do you feel has been the reaction from this internally within the forces?
Well, I think it's unfortunate timing, I have to say, because the forces are worried about the rumours, which haven't been scotched by the government, by the two leaders, who are effectively Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt, that there is going to be a cutback on plans to refurbish the army. It's been a major plan for some years now to reform, reconstitute in terms of equipment, much needed for the army because the other two services have benefited. That there's going to be a cutback. This has not been denied, despite the boosterism of Boris and then of Liz Truss saying they were going to give more money to defence. And at this very time, what are they doing? They're asking, they've already stood up 600 service personnel to plug the gap amongst the retired, because the serving people really cannot say this for very obvious reasons. There are concerns directly, including from, I think, on your channel, Time of Radio,
Yes.
from a former chief of the army, that this is the army being used for a specifically political reason, to strike break and bash the unions. And people are not happy about this. Let that be said.
But did the government have another choice?
Of course they did, but of course that's not for me. I'm not a Labour correspondent, but of course that they have painted themselves into a corner on this. And part of the worrying thing is that we've had several booster speeches, not least from the Prime Minister at the Mansion
Yeah.
House a month or so ago. But we're talking about global Britain and the tilt to the Pacific. This now looks weaker and weaker when there is a real requirement, as you and I have been discussing at the beginning of this conversation, a real requirement where the security of Europe is up for grabs.
Yes.
And Europe we are part of. And of course, the armed services feel they're not getting the backing and support they were led to expect from Boris Johnson when he won the election and from Liz Truss.